Hello guys, I am Diego Lizarazo, and today I am answering a small question that was asked on my YouTube channel around local storage on Construct 2. So like every other time, here you can have my contact information, check my YouTube channel, and give me some feedback. Now, just to give you a heads up, the entire question about this local storage is how to basically handle several keys, how to handle several values at the same time. So I created a small game to be able to answer this question. Of course, this is not the only answer, but I think it's quite useful to use this possible answer that I'm giving you to work with your own games. Okay, so let's get to it. To be able to explain how the local storage works, I created a small game. You can see that is only 22 events, and I call it so far like Falling Stars. It's quite simple, nothing complicated, but I added a little bit the concept of levels. And with that, we're going to see the important parts on how to use the local storage that we have it here almost at the end of the game. I am going to make this game available on my blog, and you are going to be able to download it. Quite likely I'm also going to put it on the tutorial section on the official Construct 2 page, and you're going to be able to download it and hopefully work a little bit with it and create some questions around that. But let's play the game and then we're going to go for the local storage. So I'm going to run the layout. And basically in this game you're going to have this little red square that has the platformer behavior, and you have randomly falling stars that give you points whenever you pick them. So you see, like, if I pick these two here, my score goes up. So I'm going to restart just to show you something, and it tells you that we're on level 1 and we have like 20 seconds. So I made it really quick for the demo to be able to work it on, and that's it. If we touch some of the enemies, whenever there's collision with the enemies, we lose points. So you can see in the score here that every time that they jump on me, I lose a score. But on the other hand, if I jump on one of the enemies, I am going to gain points for destroying them. Okay, so you can tell that it's quite simple. It has the concept of timing for each one of the levels, and well, several levels. Okay, so nothing really complicated, and it just keeps adding constantly to the game, to the levels. So basically you're going to have 20-second levels, and in each one of them, after each one of them, you're just going to go to the next level and the next level and the next level. So theoretically you can go infinitely on this number of levels. There's not really going to change much. The speed is going to increase a little bit on the stars that are falling, but that's pretty much it. So now, really, how do we do something with the local storage? So I left it here at the end of the game, and you're going to see that there are like basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 events that you have to pay attention when you're talking about local storage. So we're going to go through each one of them, and then we're going to compare what we have in our game. So the first thing is that at the beginning of the game, at the beginning of the level in this case, at the start of the layout, you have to ask if the local storage exists. So how the local storage works is, let me open like a notepad, and we're going to work on that. Perhaps I should add a graphic afterwards. You're going to have something that is called the key, and then you're going to have a value. Okay, so for example, your key could be name a score, and the value could be anything. It could be, let's say, 10. But you could have more than one key. You could add another key that could be, for example, level, and you could say that the value for this one is something like, let's say, 50, on level 50. And you could have something else that is called, let's say, high score, right? And the value is, I don't know, 1,000. or something like that. So basically you could add as many keys as you want, and each one is going to be connected to one value for each one of them. Now, the important part is that you're going to be talking about each one of the keys by their name. So I am going to say score, I'm going to say level, high score, etc., etc. And those names you can basically create however you want. So now, in this game, as you may see, or perhaps you noticed, I have the concept of level. And after 20 seconds, I just go to the next level, and then to the next, and the next, and the next. So the entire point is like, what do I do if I have, I don't know, 20 levels? What do I do if I have 100 levels? What do I do if I have 1,000 levels? I cannot really, or well, I could, but it could take quite some time to create the names of each one of the keys. I would have something like, hey, let's suppose that I have, instead of this, what if I have something that it says like level score 1, and that one, the value could be 5, right? And then for many other levels, I could have something on the terms of level score 2, 3, 4, and each one of them could have their own values, right? And etc., etc. So I could add as many levels as I can or as I want, and the only thing that I'm really changing is the end, like the actual level that we're going through. So that's why in my game I added a few variables, a few global variables that we have here. The first one is going to be level, and you can imagine that is just going to tell me like, hey, you're in level, well, in this case 0, it starts at 0, but then you're going to be level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc., etc. And then you are going to have level score. That is basically the score that I have for that particular level, you know, because in level 3 I could have a different score than what I have in level 1, right? And then I also am using this max level score, that is the maximum level score that I have recorded to a certain point. I'm also using this time left and direction, but this time left is just to count the 20 seconds that I told you about, that I'm giving for every level. You can change that and make it 30, 40, 50 seconds, whatever you want. The direction is just to be able to control these blocks that you see here, the enemies that are kind of like jumping randomly left and right. So you don't really have much control on where they move, and also you don't really have much control on when and where they are going to fall. So at some point I should have another one that by any chance they kind of fell in the same place, so I can destroy them like that. So what do I do when I start the level? And this is the first part that we're going to have now, that we can explain how the local storage works. The first thing is that you don't know if this is the first time that you have played this game, and you don't know if there is anything on the local storage on your browser that you are using, because, well, the Construct 2 games that you're going to create are going to be played with a browser in your phone or your computer, and you don't know if in that browser the local storage has any combination of that particular key with that particular value. So if you see here, there is one instruction that I'm going to go here. I added obviously the local storage plugin, and then you have all these actions. And the first thing that you have is check item exists. That's the one that I was using here. And in this particular case, you can tell that I am creating the name of the value of the, well, key that we have there. And you see that I'm using something that you may use for other kinds of strings on Construct 2. For example, when you're going to show the score or you're going to show the level, you use this ampersand and then a global variable just to build a bigger string. So what this means, and I'm going to put it again on my notepad, is that at some point you're going to have a string that is going to say high score level, and then is going to add the value that we have in level. And since level is a global variable that I'm going to show over here, if you remember, level, then the resulting string would be something like, I'm going to put it over here, will be something like high level 0, or high level, yeah, I know that it looks more like a 10, but that's an L at the end. So high level 1, and then high level 2, you see, you can tell the difference there. So you're going to be able to ask for a particular key that may exist or not. Now, the other thing that you have to consider is that accessing the local storage takes some time. When I'm saying take some time, I'm not saying like minutes, it could be just a few milliseconds, but for the game, that's something that it's noticeable. It's something that the player is going to notice if you have a pause there. So how it works is something that it's a synchronic call. You're not going to wait for the response. In many things on Construct 2, you immediately say, hey, do this, and the game immediately assumes that it's going to happen, assumes that it is going to be visible for the player. In this case, with the local storage, we can say like, hey, check if high score level 0 exists. But we don't know when the response is going to come. It could take 1 second, it could take 1 millisecond, it could take more or less. You don't really know. And that's when you have to ask for the two possible results. The key that you are asking for can exist or can be missing. So you can tell that these two events are exactly that. So the first option is like, what if it's missing? So what if like you see that I'm copy pasting exactly what I had here on this action. I'm using this one, and this one, just to show you, is going to be local storage and on item missing, right? So enter the name of the key that you want to check if it's missing. So that's what I did for this event. And then I'm saying that if high score level 0, or whatever the level variable is telling me, is missing, then that means that is the first time that we have played the game, or is the first time that we have played that level, right? So what I am saying here is, hey, you can set that variable to 0. It's the first time that we played that level. So right now we don't have any high score, but I'm telling the local storage like, okay, well then just set it to 0, right? Now the opposite result is that that key exists. So that means that we already played that game and that we had something like this, that high level, like, well, in this case, high score level 0, for example, already had a value of, let's say, 500. So then that means that I have to retrieve that value from the local storage. And this is what we're doing here, get item local storage. Okay, but that question, that action also may take some time. The browser has to go to the local storage that we don't really know for sure how it's working. That's really up to the browser. It's implemented differently on each browser. And it may take, again, 1 second. It may take 1 millisecond. You don't really know. So that's why we have to add a third, well, in this case would be kind of like a fourth event. I'm going to move it here a little bit so you can see it. And then is going to be on item, whatever name you want, get, then do something. In this particular case, that do something is to set this variable, this global variable, to whatever value I have. So let's kind of like do it manually for first level. So I am going to just copy this. I'm going to move it over here. So we start at level, this is my global variable, level 0. And then whenever I'm creating this key, is going to be created as high score level 0. That's what I'm doing here on the start of the layout. Now, on the start of the layout, I'm checking, or I'm telling the browser to see if that key exists. So it's like, tell me if that key exists. And of course, there are two options. It does not exist or it exists. We're going to do both situations. So the first situation is that it does not exist. It's the first time that we have played this game. It's the first time that we have reached this level, that in this case, well, is the first level, so it would be basically we have played only once. And then there's no value in the local storage that says, hey, this is this value. This key is connected to this value. So when that happens, then I have to say, set that key to 0. Or if you are doing another kind of value, like let's say, I don't know, the name of the player or something like that, you may set it to something different. But since we're talking about high scores here, we're going to say right now the high score is 0. So that means that it's going to create this key on the local storage and is going to put the value 0. So this thing here is what we're going to have right now on our local storage. So what happens in the other situation? What happens if we get into this event? That means that the key exists in our local storage. So let's suppose that we have already played our game and we have saved somehow. We're going to see that later. And right now the high score is 10 for the level 0. So that means that we have to get into this event and it's saying like, hey, it exists. Then we have to read it. We have to read it from the local storage. So I am going to add the action here, really simple. It would be local storage. And you see that it's getting like get item. So that's the one that we're going to get. And here you can tell that you can write whatever you want. So, well, I guess hopefully between the quotes. So something like that. So obviously this key is not the one that we want. The one that we want is called high score level and the level that we're playing. In this case would be 0. Now, the problem with that is that it's going to look in the local storage and it's going to say like, hey, we know that it exists. Now I need to retrieve the value, that in this case is a 10. But that again may take some time. It may take a second, it may take 2. You don't really know. So you have to follow exactly the same logic that we were using so far. That is to add another event to say whenever you're able to read that key, then do something. So in this case, it's saying like, hey, on item, so I'm going to add an event just to show you what I'm already wrote here. Local storage on item get, and here you're going to write the number, the name, I'm sorry. So, and you're going to see that that name obviously is what we have been using so far, high score level or whatever you want, and ampersand the variable that we have. So that would be high score level 0. So what actions do we have here? Since we want to store that value that we have just read, that is this case again 10, we want to store it somewhere. That's why I had these global variables that we have here. In this case, it's called max level score. So I'm just saying set max level score to local storage item value. So you're not specifying which key, you're just saying like the value that you just read. Okay, and construct 2 is going to figure out, because you're adding an event that is talking about that particular key, it will know that that local storage dot item value, that I'm going to show it again here, is the one that you are talking about. Okay, so in this case it's going to store it. I am also adding here this one that is a label, just to figure out to show that value. Finally, there is one last missing part. And that is like, when are we going to actually save the new value? You know, like I keep playing, I get a new higher score, and then suddenly I need to replace in the local storage that high score. Originally 0, so almost if I play like only one time, it's going to immediately have a new high score. So depending on your game, you can decide to do that at the game over. You can do it when you change levels. You can do it whenever, I don't know, the player loses a life or there's a save point. So I cannot really tell you exactly when you have to do it, but because that's going to depend on your game. In this particular game, what I was doing is that I was saving that value whenever I reach a new level. So if you remember, we have this little countdown, 20 seconds. So in time left, I always know how many seconds I have left for that level, right? So whenever I reach 0, or even less than that, I am going to compare if my level score, if the score that I have at this particular level is more than the max level score. So that's basically asking like, hey, did I reach the, a new high score? And if that happens, the only thing that I have to say is like, hey, local storage, set item, and you give the key and a new value. So I'm going to add the action, local storage, and then you're going to say set item. Again, you have to add the key, and then you're going to have a value, 400 or whatever. So obviously this is bogus. What it really cares is this one. So again, I'm using exactly the same combination, high score level, ampersand, the number of the level that we want, and this one is telling me the new score, so 300, 400, etc., etc. After that, in my game, what I'm trying to do is to add one to the level and then restart the entire layout. That is going to basically say restart the level with the new conditions. That is going to be a different level. Now, to sum it all up, I wrote like a small draft of things that you are supposed to do, and we're going to check them really quick. So the first thing that you are supposed to do is to check if a particular key exists, right? So at that point, you should do it quite likely on the start of layout, and you just ask if a particular key exists or not. Now, there are two possible answers. It does not exist, or if, well, the key exists, right? So if it does not exist, and, well, each one of them has to be a different event. So, and you see that I have it here. 1, 2. So the thing is that here, and this is the big trick, I am not, even if I have like 20 different keys, I am asking one by one, okay? The thing is that I am constructing the name here with this little trick that we used here. So actually, it's almost like if I'm always asking about one key. In reality, we can be talking about 200 different keys. You also can do this into a loop or something like that, but in this particular case, it works. So let's go back. We have two different events and two different situations. That is like the key exists or not. And then in the case that it does not exist, so that level, well, it's missing, then you just set a default value. If it exists, we have to say that we need to read that value, okay? And I'm putting it here. We will need to read that key value. The problem is that this also may take some time. It could take, again, a second or more. Usually it doesn't, but hey, you never know. So we have to ask to say, hey, start reading, and then add another event that is to make certain that when that key value is read, we can do something. In this particular case, what I'm doing is to save it in a global variable to be able to work with it during the game. Finally, depending on your game, you have to save all the key values at some point. It can be at the end of the game, when you are exiting the game, when you're exiting the level, when there is a game over, when you level up. Incredible number of possibilities there. But the entire point is that here, in this case, what I'm doing is at the end of every level, you have to store that value if it has changed. or if you think that it has to be saved, you could just save it whatever, like this is the new score and that's it. So basically you have to do 5 things to be able to control the local storage. Well, this video turned out to be much longer than what I expected, but I was trying to give you as much detail as I could so you could understand this particular answer to the question that I had around local storage with Construct 2. If you have any other questions or anything else, just let me know. I am going to publish the video right away, but quite likely it will take me a few minutes at least to publish also the example that I used to create this video. I hope that you liked it and have a great day.